Hey, Steve Saretsky here. As always, there's blogs that go with this video. I'm actually going to talk on two topics here quickly. Both have blogs going with them. First, I want to touch on is West Vancouver. I noticed that it's an interesting case study. Obviously, it's a specific area. There's not a whole ton of sales there, but it's interesting to look at and say, okay, if this can happen in West Vancouver, at what point does this sort of start happening to Vancouver and whatnot? Much of the price gains, if you look at a lot of these real estate reports that are put out, I'm not going to name any names, but they blame a lot of the price growth that has to do with population growth, supply and demand. Nobody likes to talk about the foreign buyer or, again, low interest rates, cheap credit. And, what you look at as West Vancouver from basically January 2015 through to the summer of 2016, so less than 2 years, prices for a single family home shot up 61%. Meanwhile, population growth since 2011 in West Vancouver has actually been declining every single year. This year, for example, they had the biggest population decline in all of any municipality in British Columbia. So their population is going down and down and down, yet prices shot up 61%. So I think the argument where the population growth is really responsible for this massive price growth, I just don't see it. And I think it's really sad to see a community that's really getting decimated. I know the mayor came out and said that he was extremely concerned about that. This community is essentially getting decimated where, nobody really lives there. It's essentially come here, park your cash, buy your $3 or $4 million home. No one lives there. And meanwhile, the population is decreasing. No one's really contributing to the local economy there. So I think that's an interesting thing to look at is, does that start to push out into other areas such as maybe the west side of Vancouver and obviously those prices are getting up and up and up. Certainly if you ask most realtors, they tell you there's a strong influence of foreign buyers there. So again, that's something to look about. That's why I don't really buy into the whole population growth myth. I think we're building substantially enough units to keep up with that. I mean, obviously we have an excess demand. So just kind of switching gears here. There's another thing that I really started crunching into was the market in terms of what is actually selling. I mean, obviously we're seeing detached sales for the most part across real estate board in Greater Vancouver are down 52% in December. I think townhouses are down 40% and condos were 25 or something like that. So you're seeing a whole lot of, like, a total switch in the sales. The sales are going down and down and down. And then what's interesting to note is the actual composition is changing. So as the detached prices have fallen now about 15% in most areas, they're not responsible for as many sales now. So back in January of 2016, condo sales had an equal share of the market with the single family homes. So basically they were each responsible for 43% of total sales. So you had 43% of sales going to the condo market, 43% going to the single family market, and then that remaining little bit filled by the townhouse market, which is around 15%. Which kind of really shows you that there's really not a whole lot of options for locals here, for families. It's basically you either buy a condo or a single family home. There's really not enough townhouse inventory. So I know that's something that they're working on. Again, we do have record housing starts in 2015 and 2016 surpassed that. So there's certainly going to be a lot more townhouses coming on, which is definitely a good thing. Give people more options. But again, I really want to focus on the composition in terms of what's selling. As I mentioned, it was 43% for condos, 43% for single-family homes. That was a trend for several months, and then as basically the single-family market peaked in March, we saw the condos really start to take over. And then it just escalated, and then as we hit December 2016, condos are now responsible for 54% of the market. So going from 43% to 54% of total sales, 54%. And then the single family homes went from 43% of total sales in January right down to 32% of total sales. So there's a lot less single family homes making up the total sales across Metro Vancouver. And this is just a really strong indicator of what the market is doing, because whenever you have these real estate reports, is basically, they group these three markets together. They group the townhouse, condos, and single families together, and they give you one easy number to digest. But the fact of the matter is, most of the correction is coming in the detached market. So it's really not fair to generalize them all into one group. I certainly think that there's going to be a trickle-down effect for the detached market. As that market corrects, you certainly have to believe that it's going to trickle down into the lower stuff. That's the way it happened on the way up. So again, I've talked about this before. I don't see how that can't factor in on the way down. But yeah, so that's just something to look at. I mean, as I've talked about, as I've mentioned, what's really driving this market right now is it's really the condo market. It's what locals can afford. Obviously, you have the first-time buyer program that Christy Clark implemented, which I know that I'm seeing a lot of first-time buyers take advantage of it. Now, I don't agree with it from an economic standpoint. I think she's, if you're trying to bring down prices, don't re-stimulate it with more money, with more demand. Again, like I talked about, I know there's first-time buyers using it. I've had some of my clients talk about using it as well. So yeah, that's really what's keeping the market going. We're still seeing multiple offers at the low end. Anything that's really affordable. Not a whole lot, not like what it was in the summer, but sales are still down 25 to 30% for condos. So it's not like an uptick in condos. It's basically they've just taken over market share. So something to look at, something to keep a close eye on. I am tracking these numbers religiously, so you can always check in on these videos again on my blog site, and I highly recommend if you really want to stay up to date. I do a weekly newsletter every Monday morning. I send it out. We've got about 1,000 subscribers on there right now and growing. So basically I put together a little piece every Monday morning and send that out, and it kind of gives you a whole recap of exactly what's going on in this fast-paced, fast-changing market. So I'll put a link to that in the description below as well, and I will be putting together a January market update in the next week. So look for that as well. All right, I hope that helped.